You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. He is Josh Guest. He comes by to talk Oxford and all of that stuff. Congratulations, by the way. You just said that Lafayette is in the state title game and they're going down to Trustmark, so you will not be going to the LSU series. So, Josh, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, Stephen. That's right. My son's team, Lafayette, the local county school here in Oxford, won the North Half 5A, and with a complete game shutout, by the way, the sophomore pitcher for us, complete game shutout and a 1-0 win at New Hope last Saturday. So big time. We play Van Cleve, so it'll be exciting stuff for my son and his teammates.
Well, it's actually funny. You mentioned New Hope. They were a baseball power back whenever I was in high school. I remember that clearly.
I think they still hold the record for the most consecutive wins in Mississippi high school baseball.
Yeah, okay. There's just one of those, and like New Hope, that's around Columbus, right?
It is. It's just maybe southeast of Columbus. And man, they have a really good program. And so lots of accolades across the outfield wall there.
Listen, our baseball program that we had was sad. Like legitimately sad. Like when I was a sophomore in high school, I went to high school with Chris Mangum. The only thing we had was watching Chris Mangum hitting bombs into the pine trees. That was it. We went 9-9 that year with him. It's like, oh, okay, let's look at him. And just moonshots going over the fence. But I think my senior year, we went like 3-20. It was something bad. It was something real bad.
Yeah, this is Lafayette's third trip ever to Pearl. And so it'll be nice. It'll be nice. They won in 2005 and then lost the state championship finals in 2019.
Yeah, and listen, I understand that Trustmark Park is a good park. It really is. But young kids have no idea what it was like to go to Smith Wills whenever that was the central stadium in the state. And Smith Wills was nothing spectacular to look at or anything like that. But I don't know. To quote the young people, it had an aura about it.
So this is my lack of knowledge here. Was that the Jackson Mets or no?
Yes, that was the Jackson Mets.
Okay, so I have been to a game there. So, yes, I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, that's where the Mayor's Trophy game was held before it got moved to Trustmark.
Yeah.
So interesting type stuff. So one interesting part going on. Another name emerged in the transfer portal. It's a running back. It's a name that I've mentioned if you followed my show periodically, but Star Thomas has Ole Miss in his last 4. That looks like it's progressing. It's an interesting thing. He's a 225-pound back. He is a thumper. So that leads the question, Josh. What positions do you think Ole Miss football needs in the transfer portal? What do you think that Ole Miss needs to go after? Because I did a show earlier this week about punters. And believe it or not, I got nearly 2,000 views on a show about punters. Would I consider that a win? But what do you think are the needs for this football team?
I was going to say punter. No, I don't know that we need anything because I think you also have talked about the breakdown and even how On3 and some other services have ranked each position group at Ole Miss, and how almost every, if not every position group, maybe not punter and maybe
linebacker did not make the top 10.
Did not make the top 10. And so, possibly linebacker, but
there's one on campus.
Khalil, right? Help me out. Khalil, South Alabama.
Glenn Jacobs.
Yes. So may come to Ole Miss. That'd be great. It'd be a good pickup and may vault us into that top 10. I don't know if there's really a need because you've talked about filling roles, not holes. There's not a lot of holes on our roster right now. So as long as everybody stays healthy, I like our chances to be competitive in most, if not every game. And that includes Georgia, which is kind of weird to say as an Ole Miss fan, with Georgia being the gold standard right now of college football because they simply are.
Yeah, it's one of those things like before my brain surgery, I was like an encyclopedia of Ole Miss knowledge and things like that. And I could just like recall stuff instantly. But now it's gotten a little bit foggy after the surgery. One of the things that I will be looking for in 2020 is the big game, the equivalent of the mule game for Archie Manning in 1969, that game. And the opportunity is there because Georgia is coming into Oxford. Now, we don't know if Georgia's going to say anything or do anything, and they're probably not, to be perfectly honest. But this is a game to where if Jackson Dart comes out and really shows out, he can submit himself and his legacy in Ole Miss football. So what do you think the ceiling is for Ole Miss football this year?
The ceiling, I mean, it even sounds goofy to say, again, somebody my age being a fan of Ole Miss football, but all the way to the top. I mean, there's no reason why the ceiling can't be the Natty. And I'm not saying that I think that's likely to happen, but I think it's as likely to happen as 8-4. I mean, either one is likely or as likely to happen. I think, 10-2, 11-1 with a home playoff game and possibly playing, winning that one and going on to the next round is probably the most likely scenario in my mind. Where we make what would that put us in the final 8? I guess you go 12 down to 8, down to 4, down to 2, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it would put us in the final 8, going somewhere to play. Is that the bowl games? Is that how they do that now? There's going to be
no. If you are 5 through 8, you host the first round, and it gets 5 through 12 is playing that first.
Yeah,
round.
I mean the next round. Though the next round is like the
next round is the bowl games. That's
yes, and so I feel like that's where we are most likely to end up. And of course, if we have a good game there, we could move on. So I think Jackson Dart's ceiling is the Heisman. I think the team ceiling is the Natty. Again, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I don't want people to jump on here and go, "Oh my gosh, he's proclaiming they're going to win it all." No, but I think it's our ceiling, and I think it's a realistic ceiling. I don't think it's too far fetched to think that Dart could go out and have a better year than he had last year, which last year was pretty darn good. But he's got some fun weapons to use in the passing game and the running game and across the offensive line. So I just think that it's setting up to be nice. And again, everybody needs to stay healthy. You need to kind of catch lightning in a bottle with that. But I think that this team has a really good chance to do a lot of things that have never been done before, which Lane Kiffin likes to do. And one of those would be, to win an outright Natty this year would be incredible.
Thinking about something that's kind of interesting that you mentioned earlier, I do not want to hear anything about long-suffering stuff whenever you're a baby boomer or your Generation Z. Those two generations, I don't want to hear any talk, because if you want to talk about a black hole in Ole Miss sports, it is Generation X. It is our generation that we came through. So us enjoying this and Generation X fans, we have earned this year. That is what we've done. We have earned this. And so we need to enjoy it and take every moment in, because we all remember 1979. We remember 1985. We have completely earned this.
That's right. I mean, again, you go back, Vandy used to be our permanent opponent. And I believe there was, and I may be off on this a little bit, but there was a period where they lost, 20-something straight SEC games. And I want to say that either their last win or their first win or both were Ole Miss. Mm-hmm. So to say that it's been long suffering, I mean, we're going to talk about Egg Bowls later. I've sworn off going to Starkville for an athletic event now. Earlier in life, I'd go some. There's been some of those things. I've gone to watch Ole Miss play football and, been the favorite against teams that they shouldn't have won the game, and they show up and just annihilate us. The only time I've been to Florida, I'm not going back, was like that. And so, I'll go back to Florida just not to hear it's great to be a Florida Gator. It makes me want to, puke. So anyway.
I had a drunk girl doing that cheer with the Tennessee Vol and doing a pom-pom in my face. Yeah. And that's when I was working at Ole Miss. It's like, man, did I deserve this? Anyway, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. When we come back, Josh will give us his top 5 Egg Bowl memories, moments, games, whatever of all time when we come back. But first, Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seats, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. They have the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection. They basically are the gold standard in ticket customer service. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. And also, it's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, or the Ole Miss over-under. Whether your flavor is over or under, the over-under currently sits at 9.5 wins. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, it's America's #1 sportsbook. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all of that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you each and every single day to bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Josh is on the hot seat today. We're doing the top 5 Egg Bowl moments / games, and let's go ahead and get started. Number 5, Josh.
All right, Stephen, let me preface this and say that I decided, because it was a little difficult to narrow it down, that I chose 4 of the 5 I went to, and the other one I was paying attention to. So it's going to be very recency biased, and also biased by things that were going on maybe in my life or just times that I went. So I'm going to start with the first Egg Bowl I went to in Starkville. It was after I was a student at Ole Miss. And it was the first one we won after I became a student at Ole Miss. It was in 1995. And we won 13-10 in Starkville.
That was due innocent.
Yeah. And so I have vague memories from it, but I remember going, I remember winning. And so I got off to a good start in Starkville. And you'll hear a little bit more about another Starkville game I went to later. But I got off to a good start, and then it hasn't been so good lately. So I have, as I mentioned earlier, sworn off going to Starkville to any athletic event. Did go watch baseball in 38 degrees with my son a couple of years ago.
Number 4.
That was number 5.
Number 4.
Number 4. I've mentioned this when I talked about Romero, the 45-30 win in the rain in Oxford. I think that was 2000. And so that was a fun season. And also, I think the year before was bad for Ole Miss. It was something about that. I don't know.
The year before, Romero threw an interception.
Oh, that was the kick.
Yeah, that was the kick.
I was at that game too. That where we went deep down the sideline, right? The ball was kicked up in the air, and then they won it at the last second. Yeah. Yes. So I was at that one as well. Not a good memory, the 99 game. But 45-30 in the rain, Romero. And Deuce that year had been kind of off and on injured and stuff, and he kind of ran wild and scored 3 or 4 times maybe in that game.
If I remember correctly, he got hurt at Vandy.
Yeah.
Something like that. And it was one of those situations where Ole Miss, every year, Ole Miss's best player would get injured against Vanderbilt. It just happened for about a decade.
Yeah.
Number 3.
This is the one of these that I was not at. But I was paying attention, and it was the 97 15-14 with the 2-point conversion to Peterson with 20 seconds left or whatever, 25 seconds left. And so I think Rome caught the touchdown maybe, and it was Stuart Patridge. Is that who the quarterback was? Have that right? So
yes.
Yeah. And so, but that one was nice. And of course, that's sort of that, jab in the heart of a State fan, they're up and then we score late and then we go for the 2-point conversion. And so that was fun.
Number 2.
I was at this one. This is right before my daughter was born. It's a special night for me. I had some special stuff done for my wife in my daughter's room. We got home from the Egg Bowl that night, and it was there in her room. But we were there in the rain. Eli delivered Jackie Sherrill the worst loss he ever got in the Egg Bowl, 31-0 in Starkville. And so that was my number 2 just because of all of those things. I think State ended up being like 2-10 that year. So it was no big surprise that Eli went down there and beat them.
Yeah, if anybody wants to watch the 2003 game, I'm not sure of the timing of it, but one of the hardest hits I've ever seen on a punt return was in that game. And there was a play where somebody got blindsided block and just it was decleater, back of the helmet, all of that stuff. Go back and watch that game and you can see that as well. All right,
now
number
they'd be
one.
banned from football.
Yes, they'd go to jail.
Number one, I'm going because I'm a numbers guy and I love numbers, and I was also in the stadium for this one, was the 45-0 2008 Egg Bowl. 9 of the first 10 dropbacks by the state quarterback, they got hit. 14 tackles for losses. They only crossed the 50 twice, and one was on an interception the entire game. But the stat of the game, minus 64 rushing yards, which was an Ole Miss record at the time. And so anytime you can hold state to minus 64 rushing yards, that's a good day at the office. That was a total domination game. It was so fun to be at. At the time, I had seats on the 28-yard line on the home side, on the old end zone end of the field. And boy, was it fun to sit there and watch the defense feast on Mississippi State that day.
You know, the interesting part about that is the only time I've ever felt bad for Mississippi State was that day. I thought that Tyson Lee and Wesley Carroll is like, get them out of the game. They're going to get hurt. They do not belong on the field with these guys.
Yeah. Didn't Tyson Lee, one of them went out a couple times with a shoulder issue?
Yeah. All of them went out. I think at the end of the game, Chris Relf actually finished that.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. It was basically every snap was a jailbreak by the defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was rough. It's something that I've never seen and I probably never will see again.
Yeah, I mean, it was more like a SEC team going against a middle school team from, just to pick your local high school. I mean, it was bad.
Whatever FCS team Ole Miss played that year, it did not look like it did against Mississippi State.
No, it was really bad. I won't say I felt sorry for them. But
I feel sorry for the players, not the team.
True.
The fan base can own it. But Tyson Lee and Wesley Carroll, I was genuinely concerned for their safety, especially with Greg Hardy, because he could just decide to MMA him. And
I think Prey Jerry was in on a lot of those tackle for losses.
And Prey was just a monster. I genuinely felt bad for those players, the fan base and the team. I'm with
you. I can track with that, Stephen. I can track with that.
All right. Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Josh Guest, thank you so much for stopping by, and we'll do it again next week, buddy. Well, we might not do it next week, but good luck in the state championship game regardless.
That's right. Be excited. Howdy toddy.
Go Commodores, right?
That's right. Go Doors too.